YouTube, what's up? Hey, welcome in, you guys. Thank you guys for bearing with me. Obviously, it's been a long time since the last time I seen you guys, probably over 2 weeks, but we've been very big, very busy, a lot of momentum right now. Great way to start 2021. It's literally been on fire for us. We got a couple of new builds. Actually, we got one supposed to be starting next week. So we've been tightening up the schedule, making sure we're right. It's a smaller project, so it's not a lot of meat on the bone. So I want to make sure we double check the numbers to make sure we're not exceeding that budget and eating into it. But definitely getting that started. Got a flip supposed to be coming up here in a second, and then actually got a couple of wholesales we're closing on. So business has been busy. Last time I spoke to you guys, we were talking about Facebook ads and all that good stuff. Well, we bought the course, and I realized I really wasn't a tech guy. I already knew that. But sat down, learned a little bit about it, and then had to put my Rockstar VA Grace on it, which really turned out probably one of the best decisions for me, because when I did it myself, we was averaging about a lead every $135 spent, which is crazy. Now, I didn't go the whole state. Typically, the wider the range, the cheaper the lead. I didn't do that. I did some of the bigger markets inside the state. But literally, we've been getting deals at around $25 to $27 a hit, which is phenomenal for me because we're producing leads just about every day, 2 a day. Got the marketing budget set right at $45 a day. Probably going to up that. If we continue to where we are and those numbers keep coming, we're probably just going to up that and throw some more money in and see where we can go. So right now, Facebook marketing is booming. But what I want to tell you guys right now is I want to debunk the myth of the 70% rule. And the only reason why I want to debunk, and I'm not saying it's not a good rule, but it's not one that can be set in stone from a wholesale perspective. The reason why is because going into some of these secondary markets, right? It works well when you're in Dallas, Austin, Houston, San Antonio, right? These areas that I'm in Texas, and then obviously any major city across the nation. It works well there, but it's not necessarily the best way to calculate a deal. And I'll let you know, we were in Michigan and we pulled a big list in Michigan, and we was going after homes, vacant homes there, people that owned it for quite some time. And we was going after all these particular houses. But guess what? We ran into some issues, and the issues were we were getting deals left and right at 70% minus repairs. But that was probably way more than what anybody was willing to pay for the property. Literally had investors tell me that it's not worth it. And I want to tell you exactly how to get away from that and get around that, because obviously if you're taking a 70% mentality to every place you go, you really can't do a lot of deals, right? You can, there's still a lot of meat on the bone, but it just depends on your buyers and your area, right? If you're looking to keep these particular properties, it's easy to do the 70% minus repairs because obviously there's going to be money there. Right, and we do that because there's money there. There's about 17 to 10%, right? 17% to 10% of markup on it. So if you do it right, everything flows well. You typically got 17% you can make. If you do everything bad or some things go over budget, right, you can typically guarantee yourself 10%, right? So those are things you want to look out for when you're talking about rehabbing properties. But from a wholesale perspective, it's a totally different ball game. So what I realize is that places like Memphis, Detroit, smaller secondary markets, Jacksonville, Florida, right? What is another smaller market? Those are the top 3 I can think of right now. Some of those smaller markets that price per home is a little bit cheaper. Oklahoma City, right? Some of those secondary markets. But anyways, when you're in a smaller market like that, you want to look at some things from how can I say it? Cheap as possible. You want to be cheap as possible, but a lot of those buyers are 2% buyers, meaning that if it rents for $600 a month, they want to be all in at $30,000, right? No matter what it can sell for. This is based on rent. And if you can go in there with that mindset from a rental perspective, you're going to find yourself being able to buy a whole heck of a lot more properties or wholesaling a lot more properties because you have buyers that's able to purchase those particular properties, right? So these are obviously great rental markets. They make sense from every lender perspective to be able to refi out of. The only knock on these particular markets is that the price point is pretty cheap, and most lenders want you to pull out at least a certain amount of equity on that particular house. I don't think you can get a loan. You can't get too many loans less than $50,000. I think the cheapest I've seen is around 65. 65 grand. So with that being said, it's not even worth the lender's time on smaller houses, especially with the way the market is right now. But one thing you guys got to understand, the 70% rule does not work in every market that you go to. And I want you to understand that way. That way you can move forward and actually go get you a deal in some of those secondary markets without actually wasting time and negotiating. We wasted a ton of time in the state of Michigan, and not saying we're not going to go back, but with that data, we're still going to chime through that data that we got. But we failed tremendously in that secondary market. And the reason why is because we didn't know. But this is what you do know, and this is one thing that's a step that for everybody, right? There's no way in the world I would have found that out without actually getting the list and calling, right? And texting, doing whatever kind of marketing we was doing. There's no way in the world I would have figured out if I didn't get that house under contract first, right? If I didn't get boots on the ground to go take pictures, if I didn't go out there and offer it for sale and figure out where my buyers was, there was no way I would have known that, right? And the best thing you can do is not terminate the contract. We had to because we were way off, right? We was dropping the ball $20,000, $30,000 on a house that was only worth 60 grand, right? Or $100,000 ARV. I mean, to come in and offer that at the end is probably unrealistic to get that one. But when you do make a mistake, you figure out a way to pivot, right? And in our business, we figured out a way to pivot, and we've been rocking and rolling ever since, right? That's one thing I want you guys to understand. You got to be able to take action, because until you take action, you're never going to know what to do, right? You're never going to know what to do. It don't matter how much I tell you to do something. You're going to learn something new the day you do it. You're going to figure some stuff out the day you do it, right? If you're not coming below and telling me you got what you got questions on, you're wasting your time listening to this information, because I'm pretty sure you're not applying it. Because if you apply the information we tell you, you're gonna come in and you're gonna comment below, hey, I did that, but I messed up right here. What should I do better? Right? And that's how I know if my students are taking action. If they come to me with questions, they're taking action. If they don't have any questions, 9 times out of 10, they're not doing anything that's gonna grow their business. They're just there saying, okay, I paid the money, I'm gonna be here for this time. Right? And that's absolutely the worst thing you can possibly do. You got to go out there and take action. So 2% rule is what most buyers, let me get back on topic. I ran on the tangent there. 2% buyers is what most likely what they want to see. But the other thing that can help you out in those particular areas, secondary markets, if you don't know a price point, just look at anything that's sold as is on the market, right? And that's what your comp's going to be. It's not going to be what it's worth, because if you're looking at an older home, it may be hard to comp out what something is worth. But if you're looking at a rundown home, it's going to be very easy to figure out what real estate investors are paying for in that area. So if, say, for instance, we're in secondary market like Michigan again, right? If you know you got an as-is comp sold for 30, you need to be all in at 20 max. That way you can make your $10,000 wholesale fee on it, because obviously you're not going to beat anybody that was on the MLS. Typically that's the highest buyer there. But you understand that if somebody bought on MLS for 30 grand, we're going to know that, hey, somebody was interested in a distressed property at that price. Maybe I can reach back out to them and they may buy my property if it's just like it, give or take a couple of square foot, and they may buy mine for 30 grand or 25, 26, 27, whatever the case may be. So that's one thing that you want to look into, is just cash comps, as is comps that's in those particular areas. It'll make your life a whole heck of a lot easier, and you'll probably end up with more success than what I had, right? I went in there blind trying to shoot, and we missed tremendously. I hate it. Obviously, as a team, we suffered because there was a lot of money being spent, and it slowed us down as far as from a momentum standpoint, because here we go from closing deals to trying something new out your element, and no money is coming in. So had to get back to the basics, get back to what I know, and that's what we're doing, and we're having success with it. So with that being said, if you're going into a secondary market, you're pulling a list, make sure you understand what to offer. And that's a 2% rule market where buyers are 2% on their rentals, right? And there's another video I got for that. Or you want to go in and look at cash comps. That's going to give you a better idea of at least what they're purchasing for. Something that's comparable around the same. Rehab, foreclosed homes are typically pretty good for that, especially if the last name is the name is the LLC that own that particular property. You can just look them up, skip trace that number, call them up, and figure out if you got a buyer or not. But with that being said, thank you guys for bearing with me. You guys know the routine. Drop any comments below if you got any questions about anything, and make sure you keep winning. Take care.